Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Hope you're swell. Hope you're wavy. Hope you're wavy. You're doing good. You're doing good. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing great. Nice. Hope you're doing fantastic. Getting nice. I've complained about this before, but I just feel like it's worth mentioning again. There's this wrap I ordered from Nando's, and it's like this it's like a wrap with a chicken skewer in it, but the wooden skewer is still in the chicken. So when you eat the wrap, you have to remove the wooden skewer. And who did this? Whose idea was this? Why did they think it was a good idea? It's a wrap. You should remove the wooden skewer because some people won't know what's there and they're gonna buy it, and it's like pretty hard to even hide. Why? Just remove the wooden skewer. It's a wrap. You're not taking it out and then you're just eating the wrap with lettuce and all this. Oh my god, bro. I wish I could just sit the person down to make that. Also, what's wrong with you? Why? Explain yourself to me. Explain. Anyway, we'll talk about my favorite topic today, which is relationships. I was thinking about something. Well, I thought I would. What order should I do this in? Anyway, I thought I'd expand upon something I mentioned yesterday. And I was just thinking about intentionality. This is so important, actually, now I'm thinking about it. This is very important. Intentionality when it comes to your relationships. What are your intentions? What are your plans? Because a lot of people, when it comes to relationships, they kind of just wing it. They kind of just, hey man, just go with the wind. It's kind of like sleeping at the wheel, and then when you wake up, you're shocked that you're somewhere where you don't want to be, which is so silly. Like, you should have a plan. You should have a direction. You should have an idea. Not an idea. You should have a fully fleshed out plan of what you want out of your relationship, right? So that you can work towards that. You can, and things don't always go according to plan, but at the very least, you have a general direction that you're headed in. So you don't get blindsided and end up in crazy circumstances. You should have things that you're just not willing to accept. You should have things that you want and are not willing to negotiate for. You should have all that sort of stuff, and you should be very disciplined in maintaining those boundaries and fulfilling those wishes, right? Those desires. So that's such an important part of being happy. That's such an important part of getting where you want to be in life. And I was talking about this with some people yesterday, last evening, and we were talking about like divorce and marriage and all these sort of things. And I was making the point that before we even, the issue with a lot of people is they end up in crazy circumstances where now it's like your back's against the wall and you feel like you have no other option but to get divorced. And I was making the point that sometimes you shouldn't even be in those circumstances in the first place. You should make plans to say, okay, like these are the sort of individuals I'm going to avoid. These are the sort of boundaries I'm going to put up, and this is what I'm willing to accept, this is what I'm not willing to accept, so that you never find yourself in this position. And you should be patient. We're talking about people taking shortcuts on their journey towards something. There are these women I know who always talk about, like they really want to get married. The one is like 40, and that's a big thing for her, getting married. And she really, really wants to. She's been single for quite some time, and she just really wants to get married. And she was just talking about how when your desire for that is so strong, you're tempted to take shortcuts sometimes. You're tempted to entertain people you shouldn't really be entertaining. And yeah, it's just so important to stay strong and stay focused. Because when you start compromising, or when you start compromising and taking shortcuts, that's how you end up in crazy situations with people that you shouldn't really deal with. And things can go downhill from there. And it's also important to work on yourself, because you can ask the legitimate question of, and this can sound harsh, but it's like, why have you been single for so long? Is there anything you can do to, speed things up and get into a relationship? Is there any work you can do on yourself, so on and so forth? These are important questions you should always be might be petrified, you might have legit refugees, at least critically, because you could improve life. Improving yourself, right? So intentionality is so important. Setting up boundaries is so important. Having a list of do's and don'ts is so important. And I think about things like, because yesterday I was talking about sex. I was talking about how so many marriages are just doomed to have the most vapid, they're pretty much non-existent sex lives, right? People get married, they have that honeymoon phase, oh my gosh, lovey-dovey, having sex, and then boom. Y'all are just roommates now. You're just roommates with kids. No sexual intimacy, no fire in the relationship, no romance. It's very dry, very boring. And that's how people start feeling trapped and start entertaining these ideas about cheating and all this sort of stuff. It's very terrible. So one thing I've told myself is I'm not going to be in a sexless marriage. That's something I've definitely set out for myself. So, some of these girls that'll be like, I don't know. They get married and just like, yeah, we're not having sex anymore, buddy. And then that's it. You're just supposed to accept it. End of story. I'm going to have that conversation before I marry any woman. Like, yeah, this is where I'm at with this. I'm just not going to be in a sexless marriage. And I think there's so many steps you can take to create the sort of environment where sexual intimacy can flourish, where you can both be very, very enthusiastic about it. I want her to be as enthusiastic about it as I am. And I want us to enjoy ourselves. And I've done research on this. I've looked into why people have sex, why people don't have sex, all these sort of things. And yeah, I also think about romance. How do you maintain romance? This part that you have at the beginning that tends to fizzle out and leaves you like kind of wanting, leaves you longing for the days of old. I remember this one girl was talking about how her relationship with her husband, she just misses the good old days, when they were in university and everything was just so wonderful and lovely and so much color in the relationship. But then over time things just kind of became very stale, and it's not like it was back in the day. And now they fight a lot and everything's just such a far cry from what it used to be, and she just misses that. And she was getting emotional describing this, right? And I think that's with a lot of people in a lot of relationships. They just miss what it used to be, and it loses that color, it loses that wonder, it loses that adventure. But that's because, again, it goes back to this thing of being intentional. Y'all are just going with the flow, you're just going with the motions, you know? You're not really thinking about, like, how do I maintain what I have right now? How do we keep this going? People aren't really doing research at what's the secret to a happy marriage, happy love life. And sometimes you know the answer, you're just not willing to do the work. The answer is you have to put in the effort, right? So the idea is that, you know, so from the perspective of a man, when I'm trying to court a woman, you know, I'm taking her out, and I'm getting so creative with these ideas I have for dates. Like, I'm taking her here, I'm get her flowers, and write her a nice letter, all these sort of things. And then once you get the girl, like, okay, she fell for you, now you're in a relationship. What a lot of guys do is they take the foot off the gas. Oh, mission complete, she's with me. It's like, no, wait. Everything was nice because you were doing all these things. Because you're putting in all that effort. It created this environment where everyone's happy and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what's he gonna do next? And I can't wait to go to that place, and yada yada yada. Like, you are putting in the work to create that environment. It's like gardening. You're cultivating the ground and you're creating fertile soil, and then flowers grow from that. What happens when you stop working on the soil? What happens when you stop tending to the garden? It dies. All the plants, all the flowers die. Same thing with relationships. When you stop putting in that work, you're not watering your plants anymore. You're not working on the soil. You're not tilling. You're not doing any of that. Yeah. Your garden's gonna look like shit, obviously. So your work doesn't end once you're in the relationship or once you're married. In fact, the work should probably increase. Your work rate should probably get higher and higher and higher. You should be like, okay, like minimum twice a week, depending on your schedules. And by the way, this is why I don't want to be with a career woman. I don't want to be with a woman that's super busy and has all these things that she's trying to get done, all this sort of stuff. People get mad at me for saying that, but I'm just being practical and I'm being honest about what I want for myself. It's a lot easier to have like that romantic lifestyle when your schedules are aligned and you have that time, right? So in my situation, it would probably be like something like a 2 to 3 times a week we go out. We do something to, you know, keep things interesting, keep ourselves excited. And I've said this so many times, but because it's true, it's so profound. It's the psychology of relationships and love. The simple act of going on a dinner date and getting dressed. It sounds so trivial and so small, but it's like, it's really effective. And it does a lot for the relationship. Because you're getting dressed up and you're looking nice for the other person, you're actually thinking about how can I make the other person happy, how can I look good for the other person, putting in the effort just like you would when you started dating. When you're doing that well into your marriage, you've been married for 10 years or something, you maintain that same feeling of like you used to have when you started dating, because it's like you're putting in that effort. You actually care about your appearance. You actually want them to have a good time, all these sort of things. There's some couples who've been married for a long time and talking about how they still get nervous when they do certain things together, which is crazy, right? You think that you get super comfortable, and some people do get super comfortable, and you don't get nervous, you don't get those jitters and all that sort of stuff, because you kind of, it's like someone who's just kind of melded into their couch. You've just been sitting there for so long, you're inactive, you don't feel anything anymore. You have to keep working. Don't take that for granted. So for me, that would be such a big focus of mine, just keeping that romance going, getting gifts, you know. I write, this is so, yeah, I'm gonna leave that out. But yeah, just doing also these nice gestures, that really like mean something to that person. And yeah, it requires effort, it requires serious effort. And you have to be able to maintain that effort over the course of a lifetime. It never ends. It never ends. You're never gonna get a break. But it's worth it. The return on investment is crazy. Because you're gonna have a relationship that's so wonderful and so fulfilling. And then going back to the sexual intimacy, it creates an environment where that's possible. You can flourish, and y'all are super emotionally intimate. Therefore, you can be super sexually intimate and all these sort of things. So, I have a vision for the sort of relationship I want. I've heard people describe marriage. You know, some people say it's this, you know, it's this crazy, difficult experience, and you know, like, don't get your hopes too high because it's not what it's cracked up to be, but it's still important. But you know, it's not that, like, in terms of the feelings and all that, like manage expectations, all that. I think people have just been jaded. I think people have been traumatized and have taken a lot of bad advice, and they're just speaking from that perspective. I don't think it has to be that way. So I'm like being intentional about my vision. Research on these things. You can read books on these things. Watch interviews. There's, you know, married couples who talk about these things, and it's just to get your information from various sources, cross-reference, and then come to your own conclusions and have an idea, a strong, solid idea of what you want for yourself, and then execute and be honest and relentless about what you want. You know, for someone like me who's traditional in many aspects, not fully, but in many regards, like people these days will try and shame you for wanting what you want, because you're not supposed to want certain things. You're not supposed to want to be the head of your household and you know, have a submissive wife and all these sort of things. The word submissive being such a negative word these days, but it's not. But it's like, no. I know what I want, and I'm going to get it. So you have to have the stones to go for it. You have the spine to go for it, and not apologize for it as well. So yeah. I have all the confidence that I will attain that, because in the same way I'm working towards the goals of becoming a professional writer who gets paid for writing, growing this channel, all these other things. In the same way I have plans for all that stuff, and I'm working towards that, I should have plans for my married life, for my relationship with my children, all these sort of things. It's not something you just wing, like whatever happens, happens. No, it's ridiculous. Please be serious. You have to be strategic and avoid anything that prevents you from getting there. You know, and this is going to be controversial. Some people might get upset at me saying this, but yeah. Oh well. One thing I'm kind of against. I don't understand it. I do understand it, but it doesn't make sense to me. But it does make sense to me, but I'm against it. This idea of, particularly women in particular, owning houses before they get married. And hear me out. Let me explain. It's different. The mentality behind it is different between men and women. So I'll say traditional men versus not traditional women, but traditional men versus women. The mentality is different when we're buying houses, right? I don't think it's wise in either case, and I'll explain why, but the mentality is still different in both instances. So, in one instance versus the other. I know two girls who own property. The one owns this apartment, and the other one, I know two girls. One owns property, it's an apartment, and the other one wants to own a house. So she's making plans to buy a house. And she was talking about this yesterday. And, you know, sometimes I'm like, I want to say something, I want to give my opinion. I'm like, also, then, you know, like, some things I'll just keep my opinion to myself. But, because it's not my place. But one thing I've noticed with a lot of these girls that buy these houses, the mentality behind it, because when she was talking about it, I realized it's so different, because I don't think I'm gonna buy a house before I get married. I'll explain why later, but if I was to buy a house, the reason why I'll be buying a house is because I'm thinking about, okay, I'm gonna get married, we're gonna move in the house together, and then we're gonna have children there, all these sort of things. I'm thinking about family, I'm thinking about longevity, I'm thinking about all that sort of stuff. What I've seen with pretty much all these girls that buy houses, they're buying it for themselves. They're buying it because they just want their own space, and they're going to decorate it how they want to decorate it. It's just going to be their house. And they're not really thinking, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to move my man in here, and we're going to have this family and all these sort of things. Maybe some of them are, but from what I've seen most of the time, they're buying it for themselves. It's their house, it's their property. They're not thinking about sharing it. They might share it, but it's still theirs. It's their thing. The main consideration when they're buying their house is themselves. For me, my main consideration if I were to buy a house, which I won't before I get married, at least that's not the plan. I don't think that's wise. For me, the main consideration I would have before I get a house is my wife and my children. How are we going to live here? That being said, because I'm buying it with that intention in mind, I don't think it's wise to make that decision before I have a wife. So if I get married, when I get married, the idea is we'll probably live in an apartment or something for some time and pick a house together, because this is where things get interesting. There's this idea that a dwelling can have memories, can have a personality, all these sort of things. When something becomes lived in, it accrues a whole bunch of memories because of all the things that happened there. That's why a place can have good vibes, a place can have bad vibes, because of the things that went down there. And you can really turn it into a home, you turn a house into a home. And you can do that with pretty much any residence, you can do it with pretty much any house. But you know, you want to pick a place, you want to make the best possible decision, right? You want to pick the best possible place. How can I do that by myself before I meet the other person I'm going to be sharing that place with? It doesn't make sense. You want that person to be there, so you pick together, you come to a joint agreement, like this is where we'll live, and yada yada yada. You want her input, you know, that woman's touch, all that sort of stuff, and you make that decision together, and then you move in together, and it's our house. It's not my house that I got when I was by myself. No, it's our house, and boom, and we go on from there. And then it that we live there for a long time. You know, things always work that way. Out that way, people move out, and you know it happens. But the idea is that you're gonna live there for a very, very long time. So you're making that decision with that in mind. So yeah, I want to make that decision once I'm with someone and pick together. And just going back to what I was saying about the place having memories, this is actually interesting. One Piece, the anime One Piece, it explored this idea with ships. I forgot what they called them, but ships of spirits. That's what the anime was exploring. Ships of spirits that they gain through these adventures that the crew has with the ship. So you go on all these adventures with your boat, you're traveling with it, you're with your crew, making memories, you're eating together, laughing together, all this sort of stuff. And over time, your ship develops a personality, develops a spirit. And that's why in One Piece, when a ship gets destroyed, people are super emotional because it's like a crew member. It was one of them. It was a part of the crew in a quite a literal sense and metaphysical sense as well. So when you think about homes in that context, I think there is truth to that. I think there is a spiritual element to our houses that we live in. I think you do create an environment that manifests some. I'm not going to say the house becomes alive and has a personality or something like that, but I do think it develops a vibe, you know? It develops a real vibe that's unique to your home because of all these memories that were created there. So that's why it's beautiful, like natural births or birth without medical intervention, which is possible, and many women have done it, and there's ways to do it that, you know, because these days women are so terrified of giving birth because of all this information they get from the internet and whatever else. The people have made pregnancy so scary to people. A lot of women, this is not men talking, this is women talking, saying, guys, pregnancy is not that terrible. It is for some, like sometimes there's complications, sometimes things do go wrong, but people don't understand that the instances of it going wrong are actually not as common as you'd think, not compared to the instances of it going right. So there's a lot of fear mongering around pregnancy and giving birth and all these sort of things. But this woman was talking about how being pregnant to her like wasn't that deep. Like she's had flus. She's had like flus that were way worse than her pregnancy. And you do that information what you will. Some people will say that's crazy. I'm just telling you what other women have said. It's not me saying this. But anyway, giving birth in your house, which a lot of people do. Imagine the memories that creates in your home. For your children to be able to say, I was born here, I wasn't born in some hospital. And there's a whole bunch of issues with that as well. Like the hospital will give your wife drugs, and sometimes they give your newborn baby drugs and all these sort of things. And it can affect the bonding process between the mother and the child. Because when the child is first born, you know, you hold the child in your arms, skin to skin, all that sort of stuff. When you're drugged up, it can actually affect that bonding process in significant ways when they pump you with all these drugs. So, you know, I think about that. It would be nice. It depends on the woman that I'm with, if she can handle it. It'll never be something I force on her. It'll be something we'll discuss and see if it's possible. But it'd be nice if she could give birth in the home. Again, because there's some crazy people that watch this, and they hear this and accuse me of all sorts of craziness. It'll be a discussion. I would not force her to endure a natural birth, or go through rather. I don't use the word endure, it makes it sound crazy. I would not force her to go through a natural birth if she felt that she couldn't. It'll be a discussion. We'll explore it, we'll do research, and if she still feels like nah, I can't do it. It's okay. My mom gave birth to me in the hospital. Gave birth to my brother in the hospital. She had a cesarean section with me, I believe. So, you know, it is what it is. If she feels like she can't handle it. But it would be so amazing. I feel like it would be such an amazing thing to be able to say we gave birth to our children in the home. I think that does a lot. And going back to what I said about building memories in your house, I think that's such a powerful thing to imbue into your home and that essence. But yeah. Just going back to what I said about not owning property before you're actually married. Yeah, that's pretty much why. Because these girls, they own these houses and then they get married, and it becomes an issue because you've got all these resources you've accrued while you were single. He's got all these resources that he accrued while he was single. And that's the difference between traditional men versus just like these secular, just modern men. a lot of them, in that way of like owning property and holding on to things, a lot of them act like women. So it's going to become an issue, and now it's trying to bring your lives together. But your lives are coming together with all this baggage, all these resources you accrued, and it becomes such an issue in many marriages. It's like, this is my stuff and this belongs to me. Why can't I just have my own things? Yeah. Why, like, it becomes a thing. It becomes so dramatic, and it's to build together, to build a life together where it's like what's mine is yours, and it's easier to say what's mine is yours when you attained those things together, as opposed to you found me like this and you just stepping into my life, as opposed to like we built a life together. So yeah, when I hear girls talking about how they're buying themselves property and I'm like, I don't know if that's wrong. My whole thing is, traditionally what used to happen is that society's changed quite a bit, and technology has changed things as well. People can move around a lot easier. But how it used to be is that men would stay with their parents and women would stay with their parents, and when it's time to get married, they leave their mother and father's household and they get married, become one flesh, and they own a house together. But before then, they were living with their respective families. They weren't living by themselves. Bachelors and bachelorettes. Because that also opens the doors of mischief. Now you're bringing girls over to your house to have sex, and he's bringing guys over to have sex, and all this sort of nonsense. When you're living with your parents, it's easier to avoid those pitfalls. For me, personally, I'm like, why should I live by myself? I have lived by myself in the past. I didn't do anything. I wasn't particularly adventurous. I entertained the idea of inviting girls over to have sex. And yeah, that's when I realized that, that's the only reason I would live by myself. So I can bring girls over. It's so I can bring girls over. There's no other reason for me to live by myself. Some people might say you need space because maybe your house is noisy or chaotic or dramatic. Fair enough. I don't know people's particular living circumstances. My situation with my family is great. My mom, my brother gets on my nerves from time to time, but it's nothing so bad that I'll move out and pay all this rent in another apartment. No, it's not that bad. So for me, it's like, unless I'm moving to another country, which I actually do plan on doing, so I probably will move out because of the circumstances I will be in. But like, the only reason I would own my own place, probably just rent, not own, is because I've moved somewhere else where I have no family, But if I have family in that place, I'll just live with my whether it's my cousin or whatever. If that's assuming she would allow me to. But my family operates different, because that's how families usually operate, like traditional families. Like, oh yeah, you can come over and stay with us for a year, 2 years. Because we've done that. We've had people come and stay with us like indefinitely. It's family, so you don't mind. It's family. It is what it is. Because just this thing of just living by yourself, owning property, yada yada. Your mindset changes. You become very individualistic, and you start looking at things in a very particular way. That might not be the best way to look at things when you're married. It is hard to shake these sort of mindsets. Because for the whole time you've been living and you've developed your own routine, and you like things this way in the house, and you like, oh no, don't move that equipment over there because I actually like it here, and all this nonsense, right? Little things that actually don't matter. But you built these habits, you built these attitudes because you're living by yourself for such a long time. You forgot how to live with other people. So the ideal scenario is you're living with your parents and then you move in with your significant other. So yeah, that's the ideal scenario. when I get married, probably you should move into the apartment, and then we pick a house together, and then boom. Off to the races. But yeah, you let me know what you all think. I think I was speaking facts, common sense. There's no reason for anyone to be upset at what I said. If you don't agree, that's fine. You don't have to, like, you can still do what you want. People act like sometimes, like, what I'm saying, like, every word that comes out of my mouth is being written into some piece of paper that becomes law, and then everyone has to live that way, and all this sort of things. I mean, they get very angry at me for expressing these ideas. It's like, no, guys, I'm just expressing an idea. I'm expressing an opinion. I'm expressing the way I see the world. Even if you disagree, you can still be cordial. You can still be civil. Just saying. You know, I have to pray at the end of my videos, dear Father God. I thank you for this individual watching this right now. Thanks for making them whole, unique, and guiding them apart to us. Please pray for this. Thank you for blessing this person with wonderful doing my life. Love them. Take care of them. Bring the absolute best out of them. And thank you for blessing this person with love and marriage and sustaining that love and marriage and making very, very happy. Thank you for blessing this person with a spirit of gratitude so they can give thanks for the wonderful things in their life. And by giving thanks, they can find peace, contentment, and attract even more blessings. Let your presence be felt in this person's life so that your God, that your real, that your love, your person be there for them. Good health, long life, and happiness over this person, everyone that care about you, right? In Jesus' name I pray. Amen, 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 amen.